Admonition the 22nd. Services are a priority. That morning, the morning of our second visit to the castle, I remember as being particularly beautiful, with clear blue skies, a warm Scottish sun, and light breeze. The hills surrounding us were a lambent green to purple, slightly misted with distance, partially covered with stands of commercial forest and ancient marine oak woodland. Through the valley bottom, the Rule wound its slow course between in-by paddocks filled with ewe and lamb and isolated stands of beech, oak, and ash, some elevated on ancient mottes or sinuous banks. We drove up the glen past all this rural charm in our clattering Suzuki, enjoying the virtually empty A-road, with the top down, listening to Shania on the stereo loudly. Not cool, obviously, oblivious mostly, but fun. We were to meet another Michael at the castle, our Mike, also known as Magic Mike, in order to assess the ruin we were proposing to purchase. A family friend, Magic Mike, answered to various descriptions, including plumber, joiner, stonemason, brickie, roofer, jack-of-all trades. The magic sobriquet was neither of ours, but one of my brother's, who, whenever he inspected our renovations, would classify my work as chainsaw and Mike's as magical. That our working relationship over the years had included the renovation of 3 London properties, my mother-in-law's house on Arran, from whence he came, and a variety of other projects, meant that when it came to selecting a professional first look at our potential grand projet, he was the immediate, trusted candidate. A slim, large-knuckled man, Mike had trained as a theatre set designer, and over the years, through necessity and inclination, I think, trained himself to plumb, join, and wire in the sometimes hospitable, but always mild climate of Arran. Mike was a great smoker of pipe, quaffer of wine, and aficionado of the opera. He also liked a good, loud action movie. Having walked around the house and castle, gained entrance, convinced ourselves it wasn't that bad, and remarked that the badger in the hallway of the castle was particularly lifelike, which took some considerable time, of course, Sadie and I then left Mike to poke about in a more concentrated fashion and walked back down the drive past the statics in their beleaguered embrasure towards the last corner and the retired gate with its untracked uphill path. Being curious souls, we ignored the implication that the newish padlock and chain represented, i.e. to stop and not enter, climbed over the distinctly rusted 5 bars and walked up. "I wonder whether Mr. Sausage installed it," I remarked as we picked our way up the track. The padlock? Sadie and I often share the same thought, albeit with different contextual frameworks and conclusions. Yes. Not something you'd do if you owned a castle, is it? No, but these buildings do look fairly dangerous. The teetering crow step atop that 2-story section, that's definitely dangerous. More dangerous than the ruined 4-story castle we've just been climbing in and out of without any safety gear. Ah, true, I said. But this is lovely. We emerged from the narrow, overgrown tunnel of rhododendron leaf and overhanging pine to stand in relative light, contemplating a courtyard of stone buildings. The sawmill at that point was still 2/3 roofed, with a mixture of West Coast slate on the northern side, corrugated asbestos sheeting on the northeast end and over the stables, and further slate over the garage and workshop end. The 2-story section, standing in the centre of the longest side of the courtyard, had crow-stepped gables, but had lost its roof and the 1st-story floor. The southern range, closest to the castle, was completely without roof, but the cement floor attested to its previous use as hay barn, something later confirmed by the Victorian maps our conservation architect Robin Kent uncovered while he was writing the conservation plan in 2013. Across the front of the courtyard was a 5-foot-high wall with gateway in the centre, flanked by square rubble-built gateposts, topped in each case by head-sized, silver-bearing quartz stones. Subsequently, weather, fallen trees, and disuse damaged the wall such that there were 2 further informal entryways. We were charmed by the building, especially the intricate external stonework, with the intentional play between large irregular blocks and layered infill, and the reflections of detail from the house on the central section's facade, including the aforementioned crow steps. Sadie continued, "No, I think it's in separate ownership, and maybe the owner was just wanting to prevent people viewing the castle from coming up here." "Hey, look up here," I said, pointing to the side of the courtyard. 50 yards off, in the lee of a stand of mature pine trees, stood a very dilapidated caravan. "Oh, we'd better go and see if anyone is home then. Don't want to be shouted at, do we?" "Doubt there's anyone in," said I. "The cladding is peeling off at the corner, look." It does look familiar. It's same type as the statics by the house. We walked up, silent, tentative, skirted round the back to the door, knocked. My knuckles sounded tinny in the close silence of the Sitka spruce. We waited, then shrugged at one another, still keeping quiet. Sadie gestured. I tried the aluminium door latch. It opened and swung inward, caught by the slight tilt of the caravan. There was a clatter as the door smacked against an internal wall. We flinched. "Hello?" Sadie stepped in. She turned back immediately. "Oh, stinks! No one's been in here for quite a while." I poked my head in. The stench of mould and damp was overpowering. Just like the others, eh? Maybe someone was thinking of running a caravan park. Here, over that bridge, with that really well set up place just down the glen. Now you say it. It's like Bogey or KP saying that Hazlitt, or whatever his name is, wanted to open an old folks' home in the castle. Evidently the brains of a sausage loaf, if not the name. Well, that's what I said. Well, someone did stay here for a while, though. Look, they left a trainer. Nice. Those nibble marks look very rodentish. In which case, Sadie climbed down from the caravan, wiping her hands on her jeans. Particularly grotty. Enough of that. Now, we know no one is about. Let's go and investigate the sawmill properly, shall we? We discovered that the entire sawmill courtyard was a single room deep, with the remains of cobbled floors, stables, stores, and in the 2-story centre building a 4 or 5 metre long saw table. I paused at the sight of the rotted bench and toothed circular blade. This Mike has to see. I turned, wondering how the machinery would have been powered. Look, there's an aperture in the wall for a drive belt. Outside, we found a spectacularly rusted hulk sheltering against the exterior gable. Well, that would have been a diesel engine, I think. I took a stick and scraped back lichen and moss from its front. Gubbed, I think is the term Mike would use. Entirely gubbed. And look, exclaimed Sadie, there's the remains of a flue in the roof above. Interesting. We stood contemplating the bones of this very Argyle industry for a moment. Not sure what it tells us. Maybe this mill was steam-driven before they installed a diesel version. Perhaps. I suppose all we could say for sure is that at some point this was an active estate, that the Fletchers were intent on keeping the land going. Finding dates for all of this activity would be illuminating, I'll bet. Come on, time to see how Mike has fared. As we exited the gateway, my eye was caught by a telegraph pole standing just to the side, and the 2 grey plastic meter boxes standing to its side. Wait up, Sadie. We should have a look at this. I squatted in front of the 2 weathered-looking enclosures and jimmied open the moulded plastic doors with my battered old Leatherman. Inside, the first leaves, slate, and several 6-inch nails were jammed in around 2 archaic meters, neither of which was live, but grey ceramic fuses had been left on the bottom of the box. This looks pre-80s to me. Sound enough, though. Says you, Mr. Expert on all things electric. Better get Mike to have a look before we go. Seems odd to have the meters for the castle here, though. What do you mean? Well, look, you see these 3 overheads running from the top pole to the castle? Yes. Well, they originate from here. Oh, but what about the other box then? It looks as like it's a separate supply for here. 3-phase, 2 perhaps. Maybe for the mill. I closed the doors and stood. Yes, we'll get Mike to check it. And also let George know the meter is not on our property. On what will be our property. Yes, we should, I smiled. Ours. Still quite a thought, though, isn't it? It is, Charlie, it is. But this, Sadie gestured at the meters, is not ideal. Not a deal at all. Speak to what the captain had to say, perhaps. Perhaps. But let's leave all that to George, okay? We turned and walked back to the main event in thoughtful mood.